Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek podcast. Super excited about today's show with Cody. Cody, you want to introduce yourself, man? Just like your company, a little bit about what you do and how you operate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Cody Schneider. We're running or building this company called Swell AI. It's really content repurposing powered by AI. The easiest way to describe it is you interview industry experts within whatever niche that you're in. You take that video file, you put it into Swell, it chops it up into clips, newsletters, blog posts, any social posts, etc. Any type of media that you're trying to repurpose that into. And this is really kind of our how we see it being really effective, especially in the B2B space. Like you make one long form piece of pillar content, chop it up into all these different forms, and in 2 hours of time, you can basically have all of the content marketing that you need for a whole week built and scheduled out across all platforms. But yeah, so that's kind of the high level of what we're doing.
It's perfect, man. Like the buzzword for me right now is just like content creation. You know what I mean? It's amazing seeing some of the marketing companies who have like full-time like GIF writers like on payroll, and I'm just like, wow, 40 hours a week is what they're doing. They're creating content and things like that. But I don't know how like to express that to the companies, that like how important content is. We do long form content here at the show. We'll like talk for 45 minutes a lot of times, and I tell people all the time, like, hey, this goes on YouTube, or if you just want to reach out, use this content for your own social media purposes. If you're trying to get posts out there, chop up some of this stuff. If you don't know how to chop that up, holler at me. We'll cut it up in a video, pay us to do it. Or you know what? Just go contact my buddy Cody over at Swell, and he'll be able to show you how to do some of this. Where are companies missing out by not like capturing that content, dude?
Yeah, I think for a lot of companies, we see that they don't think that it's interesting, like what they're talking about. But in reality, like a lot of these conversations that are happening behind closed doors are super valuable to the industry, especially if you're in, a very tight knit or tight connected community. Like for example, we have a client that's in like the oil and gas space, right? They only get 10,000 downloads a month on like their podcast that they do. But when you think about like, okay, this is like a huge industry with C-suite players that have a lot of capital to deploy, that small, even though it's, in the grand scheme of things, that's a small amount of people that are like listening to the show. You're not going to go and be a top 100 podcast in the US, but the amount of, economic impact that you can get from that is just incredible. Right. So I think for the mind shift I'm always trying to get founders to kind of adopt and get into is thinking about, okay, what are these things that the conversations I'm having on the forefront of my industry, how can I record those? How can I also talk to other people in my industry to get that like cross information share? If I just record that and put it out in public to my audience, to my, the people that would be buyers for me, you see that 9 times out of 10, they're going to find that information valuable. And then I just want to go and meet them where they are, right? So I do it in the form of a podcast. I put it on YouTube. I make clips for all my social channels. I write long form articles. I write long form LinkedIn posts, anywhere that your target customer is spending time online or even in the physical world. Yeah, I mean, I've seen people use us to print out white papers, right? Like, and then share that out to their audience. But just basically taking that source media, you take the transcript of that episode, and then you can turn it into all of these different things. And it's now easier than ever to do this with these AI tools. And that's really kind of how we're seeing this being used most effective. So where this originated from, this whole idea, I was working at a previous company. It was a software company, but what we were doing was selling, basically it's a marketplace for specialty lab testing for like physicians. So they would order it for their patients through us. And what we saw is that like that audience, doctors and practitioners, there's going to be really hard to market to. And traditionally, since they have a lot of, economic power, they are like marketed to constantly, right? And so we realized really early on, we were going to have to create some type of media that they would like to consume for us to get in front of them and to capture that attention. And so again, what we ended up doing was we made a podcast. It was a video podcast. We did a live classes that we do on a weekly basis. And then we just take both of those things, those webinars and this podcast, and we would turn that into all of the different media that we could share across all of the channels that they were spending time online, right? Which was LinkedIn, it was Instagram, it was Pinterest, all of these places. And I think that it's like that philosophy, like when you think about that for these companies, it just can be such a massive driver in growth. And like just to give examples of this, like I just did this in for a company that's in the biotech space. So they do, it's a really not interesting like service they offer. It's just literally just leasing of biotech equipment, like equipment you would use in a lab. And for them, like what we ended up doing is we got basically every biotech founder and company that's like in their early stages listening to the show over the last 12 months. And what has happened from that is like now that CEO, he has all of this leverage within that whole industry because he can reach out to anybody and he can be like, hey, Tom, I want you to come on my show. Would you be open to that? But in reality, like he's just trying to get a relationship with Tom so that he can go and sell Tom his service, when they go raise their Rex down to funding and they need to buy, 20 new machines that are $250,000 a piece, right? And so I think that, just trying to make that concrete for people to think about. When you make media, it's both a way for you to create content at scale that you can use in all these other places, but it's also kind of this sales strategy in disguise because you now have this excuse to reach out to anybody that you want cold, and you have something to bring to them and to offer to them that they're going to find incredibly valuable of doing, right? Like they go on the show, they get in front of their whole industry. They get that thought leadership piece, and then they also get all of these social posts that are shared with them that they can then go put on their own social media. I mean, that when you think about like the value that's provided to them for sitting down with you for 45 minutes to an hour, it's a no-brainer, right? They're going to say yes every time.
So many times I hear people say, man, what I've got to say is not that important. Like who I am is not that important. If I come on your show, who am I? It's a humble approach. I'm like, I always appreciate that, but I'm always like, no, man, you're made unique. You know what I mean? You're created unique. Like your story is unique no matter what. And I think some of the like best episodes I've had, some of the best numbers, we don't really go for numbers, like, right. We go for a fish in a barrel, if you will. Right. So like we want to be, really strong on quantity inside of the shed world, shed haulers, manufacturers, dealers, post frame, barn doors, you know what I mean? Like all the stuff that you might see that's kind of the common denominator is the shed, or shed lot, but then all these other things happen, right? Hello, shed sellers. Let's take a moment to discuss the shed customer and meeting their expectations. I remember growing up in the neighborhood where a certain percentage of the houses had well-manicured lawns and well-manicured homes. These were the type of individuals who felt it was important to purchase a well-constructed home or vehicle, or maybe equipment to help maintain the quality of the item. As shed manufacturers, we seek to provide a well-built quality shed. We want the customer to feel satisfied that their hard-earned money has been well spent on a product that will last. At LuxGuard, we believe adding high-quality rubber flooring to your line of sheds makes sense to the customer and adds value the customer can appreciate. With each year, sheds are becoming more complex. The customizations we are seeing are virtually endless. LuxGuard not only gives a complimentary aesthetic appearance for their shed, but also protects the floor from spills and keeps cleanup simple. Offer your customer the customer service they seek with LuxGuard. At LuxGuard, we are committed to delivering exceptional customer service and innovative products to help our customers achieve their goals. We strive to meet the evolving needs of the customers. To speak with one of our ready-to-serve customer product specialists, simply call 336-468-4311. To see our product and view an installation video, just visit our website at luxguard.com. LuxGuard, the floor that lasts a lifetime. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, no, dude, believe it or not, what you have to say is very valuable to people. And I've had stories where people said, man, that guy came on the show. I didn't know that about him, known him since he was young and didn't really know that. And I was like enthralled in his story and stuff like that. And I'm like, yes, man, like, we're meant to communicate. We're meant to share. And whenever you're in an industry and you're sharing those things together, like iron sharpens iron, right? You know what I mean? Like we're trying
1,000%.
to, so
yeah. And just to piggyback off that, like, I think for like, say you're C-suite, right? A lot of the times, like you don't even know what's going on at these layers of your organization when you get huge. And so when you have these, just thinking about like all of these different perspectives at different parts and different, like, you're in a logistics business when at its core, right? Like when we think about sheds, like what is actually happening? Like it's the manufacturing and distribution of like a physical product. Like that is at its core a logistics challenge. That's really what you're trying to solve. So understanding all of the mechanisms and the components of that system is incredibly valuable to any person. So it's like, yeah, maybe you don't like, maybe you're at a mid-level within an organization, but you could be doing these operations things that you don't, other people in the industry don't even know what's going on. And these systems that you've designed hypothetically, like they could be incredibly valuable to other people that are, trying to solve the same issues that you've already solved. And so I think that that's like a very, to me, it's just information. Like we're trying to distribute that knowledge as, globally as we can. And we're even starting to see companies do this where they like are creating internal, there's actually a business idea in here for somebody out there that's wanting to do this, but like basically going to companies and being like, hey, we're going to make an internal podcast for you or an internal newsletter. And we're going to interview, all the C-suite individuals of like what's going on, what's happening, what are the goals, how's things are going, et cetera. Capture that all into one place and then distribute that out to like every employee that works at the company. Like you're going to make a very more cohesive and aligned organization when you have that knowledge being shared with everybody internally, right? And so I think that that to me is really what's happening here and becoming way more accessible with all of the, it's just so easy to, we can sit down on a Zoom for an hour and have all of this information that just gets shared and can be repackaged in all these different ways.
Well, I feel like our tagline's education through entertainment. We love to laugh, joke, and cut up, but man, like there's so much education out there that like, and I think it's that education gap that is really, you know what I mean? It's like driving what we do. Cause it's like, not that we know it all. We call ourselves Shed Geek. You're not seeing me in my best. Normally I wear a bow tie and suspenders. I'm sorry. You didn't get my full brand.
No, it's all good. We're moving. So like, I don't have books on the shelf. It looks like, I'm over here throwing all the plants we have in the background. So it doesn't look like a barren wasteland.
Well,
anyway,
you can see it. You can see it on my logo because the logo is me. That's usually, but you said something in that earlier, even about video podcasts. So like, we'll talk about that, but you were talking about being able to become an industry professional. Like, dude, I was so excited to be able to like interview some of these different people. Like to me, it's like a genuine conversation. It's something I would do anyway. And I'm like, how cool that we can put a microphone to it. But like, I was surprised 100%. At what kind of like inbound sales leads it like turned into for me.
It's crazy
because like I was knocking on doors as an RTO rep that I couldn't get in. And then once people started to like learn your personality and then like listen to your conversations and kind of learn who you are, it like opened up doors to work with people. I mean, now we're doing marketing. Now we're doing RTO. I mean, we're going to be doing consultation soon. And I'm not trying to take over the world, but I'm like, hey, I'll take what the Lord gives, nothing more. I won't take anything less. I won't take anything more. I'm just kind of taking it as it comes. And I've been really surprised, man, at how like people are like, hey, they'll just call me up. Got a question about this. Got a question about that. You seem like the guy to go to that has to answer. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to let them down. You know what I mean?
100%. And I think that is like, the kind of the power of this whole thing and the effect that it can have on your business or just you as an individual. Off camera before we started this, we're talking about how my friend is doing some stuff in the out of home digital advertising space, or like, basically like think billboards and, LED trucks and that whole thing. For him, he's trying to build trust with these other media buyers in his sphere of influence. And what's the easiest way to do that is he talks to people that know way more than he does about all of these different aspects of that world. And now, he's 12 months into this thing and he's getting invited to these conferences to come and talk about all of the learnings that he's basically captured over the last, year. And he gets to aggregate those and pull out the interesting pieces and share those insights with the entire community, thinking that only happened in a year period of him sitting down and having a conversation with somebody once a week. I mean, it's crazy when you start to think about it like that. So, and I think this is like a bigger trend that's starting to be recognized. Like it's always starts out in consumer and then it moves its way into B2B. But like we've already seen consumer businesses doing this for a long time, and now we're starting to see the same strategy in the B2B. I want to pull out something too, I think is interesting on the video side. When you see somebody and you hear their voice and like,
Yes.
you know, get to know them
Come
through
on.
that, like it's almost
Yes.
this parasocial relationship in a way, or like you get to know that person, you know, from a distance, and or even just audio, it's the same thing. Like if you sit down and listen to somebody for an hour every week, like there's this trust that's built up over that process, and you get to really see who they are, right? Which makes a way better, like a deeper relationship with the customer that you're trying to, you know, get inbound from or do business with, et cetera. So,
Man, that's so important. And I even circled or like wrote down and circled video podcast for a couple reasons. But introducing Shed Hub, your ultimate shed marketplace. Are you in the shed business and looking to connect with more buyers? Look no farther than Shed Hub. Shed Hub is a game-changing, two-sided marketplace that brings shed sellers and buyers together in one easy-to-use platform. Think of it as the Amazon of sheds. Shed Hub isn't just any ordinary marketplace. It's a powerhouse that ranks on the first page of Google's search results in 91% of U.S. cities. With over 1.2 million impressions on our website last month alone, Shed Hub is where you want to be to showcase your sheds to a wider audience. And here's the best part. For a limited time, you can join our exclusive Next 500 plan for just $39 per month. Simply head over to geek.shedhub.com to sign up and start attracting more shoppers to your shed listings. As the Shed Geek, I am here to endorse Shed Hub and invite you to join me on this journey to boost your shed business. Whether you're struggling with website visibility or simply want more eyes on your product, Shed Hub has got you covered. Don't miss out on this opportunity to supercharge your shed sales. Visit geek.shedhub.com today and make your mark in the shed industry with Shed Hub. I want to touch on that. Like one of my favorite podcasts is just listening to like these guys called the Communication Guys. Cause like I think about like everything is communication. I believe with proper communication, we can solve a lot of the world's problems. But for some reason that communication gap is huge. You know what I mean? A lot of times when you're sitting across the table and you're trying to sell to a consumer, you're trying to sell a shed. You know what I mean? Like sometimes that what you're trying to say and what they're listening to or hearing or the connotations or different things, it's just like this big gap. And you're like, man, I just really want you to like know who I am. And if you would like spend an hour with me, you'd buy this shed from me. But right now I'm not saying the right things, or I'm not qualifying you the correct way, or whatever it is I'm doing that's rubbing you the wrong way. I didn't get the sale. And you're like, man, actually, if we talked for about an hour, and that's what the podcasting has done for me. That's why I got those knocks on the door when I used to not be able to. But video is part of that. Like face to face, I do a lot, probably half of my interviews in person. We travel around the States, right? Like me and my wife get to go in our RV and have
That's
fun.
awesome.
It's a beautiful life, you know? And all of a sudden it's like, but then whenever we do the ones online, I'm like, man, that's why we added video to it. I want you to see me. I want you to know me. I want you to see the guest. I want you to know the guest. I mean, we've had people on that's had massive success. I think about Real Work Labs. We had those guys come on. They signed up like 30 clients. George was like, dude, like, I want to find more podcasts now. You know what I mean? Like, I want to get 100%. On podcasts because like we signed up all these people. It's amazing when people get to know you, they follow you, they listen to you, they trust you. They want to work with you in some ways. And I just can't explain how in person, video, then audio, and then text.
Yeah, absolutely. And to piggyback off that too, like when you think about what's actually happening here, like I don't know how many people listen to your show on a monthly basis, but like, you know, I imagine 5,000 people like listen to an episode on a weekly basis, right? Like let's zoom out and think about that real quick. When was the last time you stood in front of 5,000 people and had a conversation like on a panel format in front of them and they got to hear you talk? I mean, that's like one to many. It's just crazy, right? But that's really what's happening here when you have a show like this or doing marketing like this. And so I think that, kind of framing people to think about it in that way. Like, yeah, it's not, it's only 5,000 people, but you have a room full of 5,000 people listening to you. That's a crazy number. Like that's a huge crowd, right? And so it's kind of making people realize that what's happening, and then what comes from that. And again, it's just a trust building thing. Like in all reality, like when you do these shows, it's a one-to-many sales that you're performing, right?
Yeah.
Like you're basically educating them and then getting them more like deeper in trust with you. So that and really we see this for like CEOs in particular, like when they host a show where they talk to like other industry experts, then when their sales reps will reach out and they're cold emailing somebody and they're like, oh, well, I already listened to your podcast. Like I trust you at some level already. It's not as cold of an interaction to begin with. You have some type of rapport that's been established through that. And I think that's really, the power of these things when they're done and they're executed well.
Yeah, well, and executed well is definitely the key. Don't get me wrong. I'm not probably everybody's, favorite, but you know what I mean? We try to do what we do and try to stay true to ourselves and create the message that we feel like is the one we should put out. Part of this is almost, I know this is probably not super, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not well thought maybe in the deeper meaning of religion, but I mean, we treat this somewhat of like a ministry for us in some ways. Like we get to talk to people. I mean, I got friends that send me like daily devotionals. Like we've had prayer time together. Like we don't just, you know what I mean? Like we don't even work with them in some ways, but like you meet some of the coolest people and they have some of the coolest stories and some of the best hearts. And you're like, man, this didn't just like do well for my business. This did well for my soul. It did well for me as a person.
Totally. And I mean, it just makes so much surface area, right? It's more opportunity for serendipity and like to get to know good people. And like what that always turns into is a positive thing over time, right? Like you're just the more relationships that you can have that are quality, it's just going to make your life better and also, make your business more successful too. So both of that I feel like goes hand in hand. At least that's how I like to do it. Like I want to not spend my time with people I don't like, and I want to spend my time working on things that I enjoy. Right. So
that's right.
If I can do those two things, I'm content. But
yeah, man, right on. So let's say you're a shed manufacturer. Let's say that you're, so we're all over the place, Cody. Like we have small mom and pop, we have consignment dealers that kind of have like a floor plan, if you will, if you liken it to like the car industry. But then we also have like, wholesale retailers, you know what I mean? We have those who purchase, and we have companies that manufacture and sell, hundreds of millions of dollars a year in sheds. And then we have, mom and pop, and maybe they sell, hey, this is our family business at home or whatever. We've got one employee, 2, 3, 4. We sell $1 million, 2, 3, 4, 5 million, whatever a year. We're kind of content with that. But like a lot of times, the bigger you get, that you start separating the sales and the marketing aspect. And then all of a sudden you start separating, these other categories of like management. But whenever you're a smaller company, you kind of do all of it. You just wear the hat of everything and everybody. So like, how can what you do save them time? Let's just assume that there's companies out there who say, and I could start interviewing my customers whenever they come in, or like post purchase. And then like, hey, what was your experience like? And can you explain what it would be like for the next customer? Just assuming that they would do that. How does Swell AI sort of come in? How could you help, or what thoughts do you have to give on that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so first off, I feel like in your guys' industry, there's so much content you could do, right? Like, here's the different types and qualities of wood. Like there's just, you could go there. Here's the manufacturing process. And it's like literally just them building the sheds, like filming that whole piece. There's so many different angles of it. I think the North Star that I would try to, plant a seed in people's head with is you're trying to focus on something that you can do over and over again on a regular basis, right? Like to your point that this is something that's you're trying to make a repeatable process. And I always talk about it like, hey, content marketing is a lifestyle choice. You wake up every day and you do that thing over and over again. It's how you lose weight. It's how you make your company grow. It's very, very simple. But when you do that in practice, that's how you can make these companies grow really quickly. But to give concrete examples, I would find 1 to 3 things that happen on a daily or a weekly basis within your organization, and just really what we're seeing just from our data is that content that is as unstructured and almost like raw and unfiltered and very human is performing the best. Like if we, just to give an example, like if we structured this whole conversation, it was just like, yeah, here's a question and then I answer, and here's a question and then I answer.
Right.
Like that wouldn't be that interesting to the audience. But when it's a dialogue that's happening back and forth, like that's when we can create these interesting moments that other people want to see. And I think that as a company, I would think about those two things. Like what's something I can do, and I can do it again, either daily or weekly or monthly, that I can do for the next 2 years. And it's not gonna, kill me or my business, and it's something that's sustainable. And then the other component of that is like, what are the things that my target customer would find interesting or valuable? And a lot of the times you don't even know what that is when you're beginning, but the data that you get from, doing this process is going to show you, hey, we saw that this video did better than that one. Say you chopped up, a recording of a customer interview that was 10 minutes long. You chop that up into like 1 minute clips, right? You tested all of them against each other. And you see that video 5, for some reason, it performed way better. And you go and you really just look at that video and you're like, oh, well, they talk about this topic. This idea is kind of a part of that. Well, on the next time when we record our source material, let's try to guide the conversation in that direction so that we can hopefully and potentially make another one of those viral moments. And thinking about this as like a process and a system that is improving as you do it more is, I think, the most effective way to kind of approach this.
Hello from the Shed Geek. Let's take a walk through My Shed 3D. With My Shed 3D, your company can simply add a 3D builder button to its website. Once the customer clicks onto the 3D builder button, they will enter some basic information to get started. Remember, this information is captured in your Leads tab, whether or not the customer designs a building. This is very valuable information that turns a cold call into a warm lead. Next, they begin the design of their shed by selecting a primary use, a style, and a size that best fits their need. My Shed 3D has multiple styles that are available and consistent with traditional and barn styles within the shed industry. However, if you offer a customized or non-traditional style, My Shed Solutions can build that design for future use. We can also save on some design features that make it easy to adjust without a major rebuild or added fees for design changes. For instance, want to offer a steeper roof pitch? Just navigate to the Settings tab. Then click the Building Models. Click Edit Building and just enter the new roof center height, and the design changes will reflect on this style option. This will save you thousands versus traditional design changes that need to build a whole new style to match your design. From here, simply choose the style, siding, and color. Then choose a trim and roofing style and color. Next, let's add a door. That was goofy. Next, let's add a door. It is required to add a door to move forward with the design, as at least one ingress-egress option is necessary. Then add some design changes for personalization. Maybe some windows, or a porch, or some interior shelving. Next, just click Save Design and the customer will receive an automated text with all the features of the design to the email address entered at the beginning. From here, they can edit the design, view the details of the design, pay now to order the shed, or click Rent to Own to complete the necessary steps to purchase a shed they designed with My Shed 3D. The design enters the admin panel as a quote, and this is where the manufacturer can update the progress of the design once a deposit is taken. My Shed, from design to delivery, we have you covered.
A lot of times with marketing, like traditionally, we think about it as like a campaign, right? And like a campaign is, we just take this from the military. Like you're just taking like we'd go out and we'd do an activity and then it would have an end, right? And that same idea was applied to marketing. But in reality, in the new world, like what it really comes down to is that it doesn't have an end. This is just an ongoing thing that hopefully every time you go around, the merry-go-round, you get smarter each time. And so that it gets more effective in doing, whatever that or accomplishing whatever that business goal is. And for every company, it's, different. It can be, I'm trying to get more impressions, I'm trying to get more leads, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the same thing. We're trying to get more revenue for our company, right? So we're just trying to do the thing that's most likely to get that happen. And the more you're out in front of people talking about whatever it is you do in the industry, you're going to create, again, more surface area to get more, potential inbound leads or growth for your company.
Yeah, right on the money, dude. I love it. I'm sitting here thinking, if I'm a sales guy or a sales gal, you know what I mean? Like, why would I not want to have my face in front of 100%. A potential customer? That way, whenever they show up, they have that warm, like you said, lead. And 100%. Who knows, maybe they start to follow you. Maybe you have a channel. Maybe you have a personality that you're just not capturing because you're not putting, the audio record button to it or the video record button to it. And maybe a lot of times they're like afraid. I wrote that down because I'm like, a lot of times public speaking is the thing that people fear the most. But I'm like, bro, you're in sales. You know what I mean? You're already speaking to people. Even without sales, you're selling yourself every day, who you are. You know what I mean? Like what you're trying to accomplish. 1000%. So, but if you're actually trying to sell the product, I mean, the people are buying you first anyway. Anyway, when they come in, I mean, there's like some like very valuable product information, but I think an A+ sales guy or gal can overcome with a lack of even knowledge. They can overcome like a C+ knowledgeable salesperson about the product, right? Because like unless somebody's 100%. Super like product centric, for the most part, they're going to come in and like they're going to be buying you. Do they trust you? And you have a small customer acquisition time with sheds a lot of time. You're not building a house. You know what I mean? Like this,
yeah, totally.
You're trying to get this thing done and you're trying to qualify them quickly and you're trying to make, make them welcome and make them want to stay. And so you can talk to them and explain. But like, what advice do you have for like those sales guys and sales gals that are like, well, I don't know equipment. I don't know this. I don't know that. Is that where you come in? Is that what you guys have fixed with Swell AI?
Yeah. I mean, for sales, like we see some customers using it where it's like they're recording their calls and then like a question happens and they answer this and they put that just out in public, right? Like I think for a lot of people, like it's just, these conversations that we think are uninteresting or like these things that we do over and over again on a daily basis, to the vast majority of people, they're not spending any of their mental energy like thinking about that, right? Like they have all their other problems that they're worried about. They like our little scope of the world is something that they aren't thinking about. But when you can get, introduce them to that and kind of answer that without them doing a lot of heavy lifting, like it's not like they're having to jump, they're not committing to a 30-minute call. It's just, here's a 30-second video solving this problem, in real time. I mean, I think if I was a salesperson starting over and like in that role, like something I would be thinking about is, okay, like how do I show up in front of every one of my target customers' faces,
right?
On their mobile device, like, or on social media, whatever that is, that how do I, and it's probably LinkedIn in reality, like that's the best place to do this, but how do I show up every day so that they start to trust, me as a person so that, and again, this is how you can compete against maybe there's salespeople that know way more than you, but it's just human nature. If if you've interacted with John for 6 months and you've only talked to Steven for like a week, who are you going to trust more, even though Steven may be way more knowledgeable in all of this information? Like maybe John's 80% of the way there. He didn't know a couple things, but he's been consistently in your life. I think the bigger thing here, the bigger idea here is like people make decisions off of consistency. Like they make sales like decisions off of consistency. And like, that's really what trust is. Like, you if you show up in people's lives over and over again, where they're having these like moments of distress or whatever, like people are going to trust you because you keep showing up for them. Like that happens in our personal life. That same idea that happens in our business life as well. So it's just taking human nature and just applying it into it. Like business is just humans. It's a group of humans, all together. It's that same, these same concepts translate back and forth between both of those parts of our life.
Well, just imagine what that does if you, going beyond that, like you said, LinkedIn, I mean, using any of your social feeds, most everybody has, Facebook business account anymore. There's, a lot of our guys are running ads because, Facebook has made it kind of clear they're not super business friendly unless you want to pay, right? Like if you want to spend some money, and I think most people know that if you go out and create a private group or a public group or whatever, the algorithm's free and they just run with it. But then you create a Facebook business page and you're like, man, why do I have, like 1.6 thousand followers and like 20 people like my stuff. Whenever I felt like that was good content I put out, and it's like, they're suppressing the algorithm. But if you'll spend some money, run those ads out there, and the video content we're capturing, just imagine, and I'm not sure if you're a big Google ads guy, Facebook ads guy. I don't know how, you know what I mean?
I mean my customer where they are, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing that people get hung up on is like, where should I spend money, or where should I invest, or where should I advertise? And, at the end of the day, it's like wherever they are, you go and you meet them there. Like, that is really what good marketing is. So if they're on Google, then you meet them there. If they're on Facebook, you meet them there. If they're, if a flyer at a gas station, I remember I was working for, so in a past life, I worked at a B2B marketing agency, and we worked with manufacturing companies. Think, like wood products, windows, shower bases, trailers, right? And I was doing some work for this company called Trinity Trailer. They're like a conveyor belt trailer for potato, and that's really how it got its origin. But we did this whole campaign where we basically just like put flyers in the gas stations where we knew the drivers were like getting coffee and their breakfast every morning, right? And so that, and where these, basically farmers are spending their time, like we're just going to try to always make something that meets them where they are, and then put some type of educational, material, whatever that ends up being, that is going to be the most effective for us to communicate our ideas and build relationships with them. So
we get it.
I think people get hung up on what they should do, and it's like, just meet them where they are.
I totally get it. We're one of the things that we're launching, as a book, sort of a magazine, a consumer facing magazine called Shed Trader, just to play off, what Auto Trader did and things like that. I mean, there's already e-commerce in the market. And at iFab LLC, our passion is welding, fabricating, and design. That's why in 2015, we began to commercially market our product to the shed, portable building, and mini barn industry. Our product is primarily used to build trusses. Our truss saw system cuts boards in one motion, and our truss press system installs and presses the gusset plates to a finished truss. We custom fabricate jigs that assure perfectly symmetrical truss setup without error. We also have other products designed to help your shed builder increase quality, efficiency, and save money. Our precision door tape will build your custom doors square every time and easily adjust to build any door. For products like these or other custom fabrication services for your barn shop, visit ifabllc.com or call 563-422-7496 or simply email us at ifabllc@gmail.com. A lot of our audience, you may not know this, are playing community. So, I mean, like there's a lot of shed dealers, manufacturers that come out of the playing community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Northern Indiana, Millersburg, Ohio, Arthur, Illinois, but really just even spread throughout the country. And like, that the technology of like the books and the magazine is like fairly, it's already approved sort of a media. And we're like, man, why aren't we like, putting their products
100%.
in a magazine and just like, sending them out to people, and finding their customers, finding the hot spots for the customers. I still see this with real estate magazines all the time, right? Or tractor equipment 100%. Or, different things. So we're like, why not try and meet people where they are? So, we're trying to be serial entrepreneurs, I guess you'd say. You know what I mean? We're trying to.
No, definitely. And that pillage content can be turned into that magazine content, right? Like say you do a monthly magazine and you interview people like, throughout the entire month, and maybe you collect some other ideas, but like there's so many, like we've talked about probably, guess like 5 to 6 different topics through this conversation so far. Each of those topics could be expanded into its own article, right? Like its own magazine article. Maybe the magazine's only 30 pages long or something, but like it's that same idea. Like we're going to make this long form pillar content, and then we're going to chop it up into all these other small bite-sized pieces that can be applied to physical as well. Like it can be used in, the medium source is not as important. It's just figuring out, okay, how do I have these valuable conversations and record it in a way that I can reuse it again over and over again. And I think this is another like critical thing for people to think about. Like you make this content once, and most companies, like maybe they use it just once, but the companies that are doing this the best, in my opinion, is like they have a whole back catalog of content that then they go back to and they pull from, every 3 months or every 6 months or every year or whatever. They go and they mine that back catalog and try to find, the valuable information that would be interesting or important at this given moment. Like trends come back, right? Like things happen again. You're like, oh yeah, in episode whatever 67, we talked about this. So let me bring that one back to the forefront and get this in front of my audience, or do some social clips, etc.
Man, we even do that.
There's another way to think about this
through targeting and retargeting, even through our marketing campaigns and things like that. Like you want to, creating drip campaigns, trying to create email blast and things like that. I mean, they still work. People still love to open up their email. I mean, we watch our numbers all the time. We send a newsletter out. We'll throw your website on there. People will be able to go and click on it, and and AI is going to write this beautiful little bio for us and show title. And I used to do those. Here's the thing, because like we're going to talk AI. I want to kind of touch base a little bit on that, but we love that because I actually had one of my listeners from the plane community say, man, I don't know what you've been doing on these bios, but I got to be honest with you, man, the bios just make me want to listen to the show that much more. I didn't always, sometimes I'd read them and be like, iffy, or the title. I want to see who's on there. Maybe I'll listen, maybe I won't to an episode, but I want to see who's on there. And I was like, well, believe it or not, like technology is what's doing this for me. I don't mean for it to feel fake, but they're listening to my actual words and then they're transcripting those. I mean, even on my meetings, Cody, that I have, my Zoom calls daily that I have with people in business, like we've got Otter taking notes for transcripts, creating minutes, so I can go back and look at that because I'm 43 years old. My memory's failing me. You know what I mean? I can't remember everything that we talked about.
I turned 30 this week. I talk to so many people on a daily basis. It's hard to keep it all. It's all organized.
So I just tell people all the time. I'm like, man, like these are things that I feel like that you should embrace. And like AI is kind of it's a scary thing. And if you're in a conservative world like I am, it's probably that much more scary because it's like, if you don't know about it, like if you don't understand it well enough, it's easier just to either criticize it or shy away from it, one of the two. So like, where do you, that AI worked good for me creating that bio. Like I've written my heart out and I love to write, and I've like written it and then put it over in chat or something. And I'm like, man, that just sounds so much better. And it's actually what I wanted to say. I just couldn't come up with the vernacular. And it did it for me, but it still took the essence of what I was meaning to say, and it just improved it. So like, I don't mean for that to seem like it's fake, right? You know what I mean? But I actually feel like it's
from your words though, like that's the difference. Like I think there's two different sides of this. Like if you're just using like the AI to write based off of its general knowledge, like it's going to be, it's not going to be really that interesting or like that much insight. But in contrast, like if you're saying, hey, here's this source file and transcript of this episode, and I want you to write a summary based off of the source file I gave you, like a bunch of things are happening there. Like your own personality is going to shine through just because naturally like you're a part of that transcript. The vocabulary you use is going to shine through because it's in that transcript. And so I think that for, when I'm talking to a lot of B2B companies, like that's the light bulb moment that they get, is when they realize like, oh, it's not about just like making AI generated content. It's about taking this thing that used to be a very time consuming thing. Like, for example, like you sit down and you write show notes for your podcast. Like, I mean, I've done this before. It could take hours.
Yeah.
We'll say 3 hours, 5 hours, even, if you're trying to write really, really in-depth good ones, especially with timestamps and all this thing. But that, the AI, it can do that in about 2 minutes. And you got your first draft of it. So as a human, like what this allows for you to do is focus on the inputs being really good and then the outputs being good, really good. But that 80% in the middle, that all that heavy lifting, that's what we're trying to hand off to these tools. And really thinking about this is like, this is just a tool within our tool belt, right? Like just like how Excel is used to like do like, like math or tracking, like it's that same thing. All this is really being used for, and what it's really good at is taking unstructured information and then structuring it for us. So that's kind of what I would say to people as they're starting to interact and adopt and think about using this within their organizations.
Dude, I think it's great. I definitely love all of it. Digital Shed Builder is an online shed configurator that strives to provide incredible visual quality, fantastic customer service, and an amazingly low price point, making it a perfect fit for any shed dealer looking to increase their online sales. Digital Shed Builder is simple to use, taking less than 5 minutes to integrate on your site. The Get a Quote feature streamlines your sales process, showing you exactly what your potential customers need. They offer a highly customizable experience that accurately represents your brand and unique shed offerings, working with you directly to set up everything you need in a configurator. With no extra startup cost, no lengthy contracts or commitments, and no hidden fees, Digital Shed Builder has been created with quality, simplicity, and affordability in mind. So tell me a little bit about, just so my audience knows, tell me a little bit about Cody. Tell me a little bit about Swell. Like, where are you from? We didn't even get through that. Like you said, you used to be from Idaho. Where are you at today, man?
Yeah, I'm from Idaho. I'm from North Idaho originally. And then I lived in Boise, Idaho for a while. And then went out to San Francisco just for work. I got pulled out there. I'm now in Denver, Colorado. I miss the mountains. And so I needed a city that was closer to them and like still had some stuff to do. Yeah, I mean, long term, I'll end up in Idaho. Like, that's just what I know. And that's where all my family is. And I miss small town America. In all honesty, I miss the woods is really what it comes down to.
Right.
I grew up out in, the national, like right next up against the national forest, and kind of miss that that quieter life. So that's really kind of the high level of how we ended up. Honestly, I don't even know how I got into the digital stuff or into software. It was kind of just like a weird cascading of events. I was like, everybody was trying to figure out like, how do I start a business? And one of the easiest ones was like doing an online thing, when you're 19 and you have no money. And then from that, I learned these skill sets that I guess were valuable to, this B2B marketing agency I worked at. And really, I was, my boss would always introduce me as like, yeah, here's like our crazy young gun. He's going to tell you some stuff. We'll probably do like maybe 10% of what he suggests. But it was really all I would do was like, here's digital strategy and options, that we could attempt, try. And then we'd actually do, maybe a more conservative version of that. But that, just somehow, and I think this is a larger thread with all of this, is like, you don't really know where your career is going to go, your journey is. It's like, the biggest thing is you just keep up and kind of take a step forward every day, right? And that's how you end up in all this. And it's funny, I was just talking to a friend earlier today about really how things grow, and a lot of the times it's like you grow like when you look at like how who ends up winning in the long term. It's just whoever survived the longest, right? So like your business, it's like if you're just around for if you can outlast the competition, like you're going to be successful. And I think it's that idea is kind of one of the most powerful ones, and one of them I really believe in when it comes down to like how do you make good sustainable companies that can last generations, be passed on to to family members, etc. So
there's a movie, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's got John Travolta in it, and it was playing a lawyer, and it was about a tannery factory up in the Northeast and based off true events and all that stuff or whatever. But he said, all litigation is law is like who can like spend the most and last the longest. And,
Totally.
the first one to lose runs out of money. I mean, that's just what it boils down to. And it's like a lot of times in business, it feels that way. You're just trying to like hang in there. You're trying to compete. We've been an industry that's talked a lot about collaboration and like, cooperation. I mean, like I remember sitting in like one of my, I guess it would be now a quote unquote competitor, I guess if that's what you want to say, in their office. And I was reading an article by Mr. Beast, and he was talking about how like collaboration is what's got him there. You know what I mean? He's like, man, just 100%. Collaborating with people. Yeah. He's like, the way people used to do business back in the day was cutthroat and like, hey, that's my competition. Good. I got to squash him. And it's like, man, like the new generation has figured out like, that's my competition. Cool. I want to talk to them and like figure out, is there a way we can work together or work better? Or is there a way that we can improve the consumers like experience here? And it's like, whoa, what a novel thought, right?
I mean, It's so funny to me. Like whenever I talk to like young business, entrepreneurs that are building their first companies, like they're always, I feel like so often they're trying to like change the customer's idea on how they should do the thing, right? Like this is the better way to do it. But in reality, like how companies actually succeed is through service, right? Like it's by providing great service to your customer and basically selling to them what they want, right? And that's a part of that service piece. And so I always just try to like, the more the experience I get, I always that's my lens number one that I look through, at the world with is like, how do I provide like service to these people? And that's really what business is it's a service, right? Like I'm providing some type of experience or product or whatever that is, but I want it to, I want to think about it and approach it in that way. So.
Dude, we're consumers. Me and you are consumers too. We're not just business owners, and everybody else that out here is a business owner. They're consumers too. And like probably every unpleasant sales experience you've had is probably some sales guy or some sales gal trying to follow the program meticulously of what the micromanagement has put into place. And they've not had the expression 100%. And freedom to do their own thing and just be who they are. And that's probably going to make them a top 5%er if they just tap into what's natural. And like, hey, I just need to help the consumer and not follow this particular program word for word and, task for task and things. Like, I'm not saying there's no value in those things. I'm just saying like, you'll always be your best self when you're free, when you're just free to communicate. 100%. So like you'll sell better. Even if you lose that sale, like you'll lose it, but you won't feel like you've like pigeonholed them into, let me see, did I meet all the marks? I told them this, I told them that. Those things are important, man, but you've got to find a way to collaborate those into your natural being, just who you are.
Totally. I think a big piece of it too is like, I always had a distaste for high pressure sales in particular, just because it feels very short-term thinking. Like if I give that person a bad experience or a bad taste in their mouth, like in contrast to giving them, they leave happy, like they're probably going to spend more money with me over the lifetime of doing business with them if they leave happy and like with a good experience rather than being frustrated with this. Like even if they do buy the product, like you're always going to see the people that are the best company. And what is a company, right? It's like people that buy things from you over and over and over again. Like that's how you create like a sustainable business. And like what's the core fabric of making a sustainable business? It's making people feel like they're valued and they're happy and they trust you, right? Yep. And that's how you get these repeat purchases to happen. So,
dude, anything, if people want to reach out to you at Swell AI, where would they go? Website, phone number? What's the best thing to do?
So totally. So you can just reach out at Cody@swellai.com. That's just my email, and try to answer everything as fast as I can typically within a day. And then I'm on LinkedIn and then swellai.com. It's free to sign up and to play around with it. If you reach out to me as well, happy to throw some credits on other people's accounts so they can get some free credits and take it for a joyride. So
very cool, dude. Any questions? I always do this. Like I spend so much time like grilling the audience and like asking them questions and things like that. Any questions that you have, man, like shed related, podcast, just something that comes to mind that I might be able to elaborate on. If not, no biggie, but if you do, happy to answer it.
Yeah, I think what I'm always interested in is like, what are the trends that are happening in your industry that I would just never be able to see? Like like in relationship to anything, like a larger economic thing, like are you seeing like a downturn in market, an upspend in whatever those things are. I'm just always interested to get people's like perspectives from a vantage point that I will never probably be in. So that to me is the most valuable. I mean, it could be really anything. So I know that's kind of a reverse, but that's really what's interesting to me. So.
Well, we saw like massive growth. Like sheds is like, is outdoor structures, outbuildings. It's still the way. What we found is like where the shed meets almost kind of like what you're seeing living space a lot of times, right? Because you got the tiny home movement.
Interesting.
And if you think about it, like we service both like platforms, right? So like if you're a minimalistic person and you're like, I want less, I want a tiny home, we're like, guess what? we're in the construction business. We can probably build you tiny homes. There's probably a lot of shed builders that build tiny homes or put them on chassis or even build tiny home is like, you know, if you listen to HGTV, that's like 150 square foot on wheels. Why? But, you know, we do 16 by 40. So you're looking at 16 or 640 square feet.
Even like little cabins, that type of thing.
And a lot of people are like trying to find affordable housing. But then a shed is what? A shed is storage, which means excess, which means if you're not minimalistic and you're American and you like all of your stuff, you just keep buying more sheds to put more stuff in because you bought more stuff. So like we've serviced both markets in that way. And, you know, I would think we follow the housing market pretty close, but, it's only been around like 50 years. It's always kind of been around, right? Sheds, mini barns, things like that. But like, this is kind of storage centric. So, but it's turned into so many other things because like now, like if you're a shed builder, a lot of times you're building, trusses, or you got a roll former, right? So now you're doing metal roofing, or you're doing greenhouses, or you're doing chicken coops, or you're doing play sets, or post frame. Like it's kind of like, it's just very Americana. You know what I mean? It's trades. It's awesome. Trade work for sure. It's hard work. I mean, there's a whole industry around just our hauling. You know what I mean? Like the transportation and logistics.
100%.
It's $250,000 to get into a rig. We've got nice little machines that'll deliver sheds to your backyard like a pizza, you know, like wheels that go sideways on trailers. I just built a
retaining wall. Dad, this last summer, at the end of the summer, it's like they have some property that they need. I mean, it's great that, you know, there's just all these spaces that you don't even think about. And then you're like, all right, we're buying these like, you know, 1/2-ton concrete blocks and I'm lifting it up with the skidster. Like it's just craziness, you know? And like, honestly, these conversations are always super interesting to me because I kind of grew up in that world and now I'm in this whole different other space. So it's
same here, dude. Believe it or not, I am not a tech geek. You know, I mean, like it took me a long time. I mean, I'm a shed geek. I was a blue collar guy for years. I worked in a granary. You know what I mean? Like, you know, did a lot of hard work, you know, had a lawn mowing business, you know? Totally. So like, I got into customer service because like our little town got a casino in the Midwest. And then next thing you know, I'm like, oh, you know, like I like people and let's do this customer service thing. And then, you know, that turned me into sales. And when you're in sales, it's not going to be very long before you're like, I want to get in front of more consumers. Like I believe in my product. I want to do that. And like the digital like landscape was the way to do that. So
for
like,
sure. I think there's that moment for it. And like, especially with these tools that are coming out. And, you know, the final thought I'd love to leave with your audience is like, it doesn't have to be like a mass adoption of these things, right? Like, you can just do 5%. Like if you could find a process in your current system and you can automate away 5% of that, like think how much, like, I mean, that's instant savings for your business. Right. And like, you know, to give a concrete example of this, I just saw this done in like a real estate business. My friend does this type of consulting it's called like automation engineering, right? Where they just go in, they look at the systems and how can I automate paperwork or whatever that ends up being. And he did this for a real estate company where he came in and he found that, you know, 40% of their daily activities was just paperwork, like taking data from one place and putting it, you know, somewhere else. And so he basically automated away that whole system for him. And for the CEO of that company, I mean, overnight, he just cut costs by 40% because that's 40% of those people's times on a daily basis. And then those salespeople, and then they get this focus on the thing that's more human, right? Which is building relationships, being out in their industries and talking to people. So anyway, I'd love to, I think that's the kind of my last punctuation mark for this conversation for everybody.
Dude, it's very cool. I've certainly enjoyed having you on. I'm so glad we were able to connect. Hang on here a little bit. We'll chat. I'll stop recording, but I just wanted to say thank you. I love where some of these conversations take me. You just really never know, man. And I was excited about this show today, and dude, I'm even more excited about after it happening now. I think it's really cool and love your product. I encourage people to go Swell AI, SWELLAI.com. Cody Schneider, appreciate you so much being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Very cool.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.